Moscow. As president of Georgia, he survived a disastrous war with Russia. As a regional governor in Ukraine committed to fighting corruption, he clashed with just about everybody, including his estranged former ally, Ukraine's president, Petro Poroshenko. On Tuesday, Mikhail Saakashvili, a one-time darling of the West, took his high-wire political career to bizarre new heights when he climbed onto the roof of his 5-story apartment building in the center of Kiev, the Ukrainian capital, with law enforcement officers in hot pursuit. As a crowd of hundreds of supporters gathered below, he shouted insults at Ukraine's leaders and, according to several local news outlets, threatened to jump if security agents tried to grab him. Dragged from the roof after denouncing Mr. Poroshenko as a traitor and a thief, the former Georgian leader was detained but then freed by his supporters, who, amid raucous scenes on the street, blocked a security service van before it could take Mr. Saakashvili to a Kiev detention center and allowed him to escape. With a Ukrainian flag draped across his shoulders and a pair of handcuffs still attached to one of his wrists, Mr. Saakashvili then led hundreds of supporters in a march across Kiev toward parliament. Speaking through a bullhorn, he called for peaceful protests to remove Mr. Poroshenko from office, just as protests had toppled the former president, Viktor Yanukovych, in February 2014. Russia rebelled in a spectacle that only buttressed its view that Ukraine is a chaotic shambles incapable of running its own affairs. State television repeatedly broadcast footage of Mr. Saakashvili screaming from the rooftop and of the melee on the street below. The Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, took delight in mocking Mr. Saakashvili, telling journalists in Moscow, "You know, we're not used to reacting to statements made by people who are sitting on roofs." He added, "We are observing events overall with interest. Of course, this is Ukraine's headache. This is something you wouldn't wish even on an enemy, that's how I'd put it." The United States Embassy in Kiev issued a statement calling on all sides to de-escalate tension and avoid violence. "We are monitoring the situation closely and expect any investigation will be conducted expeditiously and in accordance with Ukrainian law." The European Union mission in Kiev also called for a fair inquiry in accordance with the law and asked that Mr. Saakashvili's rights be respected. The scenes outside Mr. Saakashvili's apartment on Kostelnaya Street left some aghast, with Mustafa Nayyem, a reform-minded member of parliament and a key figure in the 2013-14 protests against Mr. Yanukovych, describing them as idiotism on Facebook. "Whatever your opinion of Saakashvili, the government's actions now concern all of us," he wrote. "This could happen to anybody who doesn't cut a deal with them." Seeking to explain why Ukraine's security agency, the SBU, had tried to grab the former Georgian leader, Ukraine's prosecutor general, Yuri Lutsenko, accused Mr. Saakashvili of assisting a criminal organization led by Mr.